All right, so welcome back. So this is the next part in the Bilingual Emergent video or conference, virtual conference. Uh, I have 4 recommendations. I skipped over number 2, so I went number 1, get to know your students. Number 3, practical suggestions. Number 4, create partnerships and join organizations. I'm a member of Mid-TESOL. I recommend that all teachers in this region join. It costs less than $100 for like 3 years. You are a member of a group of teachers in this region who are dedicated to helping students learn English as a second language. They're good people. It's a good organization. I highly recommend it. Just Google search Mid-TESOL and you'll see what I'm talking about. Co-teaching with other teachers, especially any specialist, anyone who's assigned to work with certain kids, make sure you're planning with them as well. Co-teaching includes co-planning. It doesn't just mean allowing somebody to come in your classroom. Look at your school-wide policies, practices, and beliefs, and this might be something that you want to do after you've gotten a job or while you're interviewing for jobs, but look to see what they do and how they do it. Are kids being stuck and placed on computers all day who are learning English because that's more convenient than actually working with them? That's a common thing that happens, so kind of look at that and see what happens with that. Volunteer in your local community, especially if there's an ESL program, English as a Second Language program, for refugee and immigrant students and families. That's a good way to say, I'm here to help you. Volunteer to be the point of contact for new families. So when someone comes in, that they know that this is the teacher who is willing to help out, that you are somebody who supports new students coming into the classroom in schools. So I will admit, many teachers get frustrated when a student comes in March. And they're like, why does this kid come in my classroom in March? Well, it's because that's their life. And because their family is coming to your community, it happens to be March, and they want an education. So being willing to help them is key. Okay, so here we go. This is the part, blow up my inbox and my emails, write me all you want about what you think about all this. But here's what I call my controversial second recommendation. Number 2, recommendation. Really have a belief about what you believe and why you believe it. So have a clear understanding of what you believe about your students and why you hold these beliefs. Sorry, it's a little hard to see what that part is, but hopefully it makes sense. All right, here's why this is so controversial. When you really start to have introspective beliefs and thoughts about your perspective on these things, you might not like what you find. You might not agree. You might get to a point and go, ooh, I didn't think that, but now that I'm logically thinking it through, that happens. The main thing here is about language usage. Here's the fundamental thing. When it comes to respecting cultural diversity, we cannot respect cultural diversity and disrespect linguistic diversity, but we try to do that often in our schools. All right, so I'll show you some slides and hopefully this will make more sense. All right, so this is a perception thing. If someone asks a teacher, what would you do if you could change one thing to help your bilingual emergent students, usually referred to as ELLs, what would it be? So normally I'd pause, do this activity with you guys in person, but I'm just going to show you the typical answers I get. And they're all good answers, but typically it's, I want my students to learn English, I want them not to struggle to understand me, I want them to be able to participate fully in class. Okay, so typically the concept is I want them to learn English as fast as possible. I completely understand that. I completely understand that's why we have this perspective. And this is why our school system tends to focus on English language learners, that concept, as a problem. We want to overcome the problem. There's a deficit. They don't know English. Let's teach them English. They're not understanding what the teacher is saying. Help them. Give them some support to help them. Okay? Here is the issue for me, is that learning English is important, but honestly, for most students who are classified as English language learners, It is not the most important thing for their success in America. We want them to learn English, but learning it as we often teach them in terms of kind of an immersion model can actually do more harm than good. There are other factors that we need to consider as well. And this is where people are like, oh man, this gets a little heavy. So bear with me here. Here are some things that I would say about my English language learners, my bilingual emergent students, whatever label you want to say. I would love for them to not live below the poverty line. I would love for them to have all access to good health care, healthy food, clean water. I would love for our system of immigration and U.S. citizenship to be much easier to navigate, much clearer, and much more convenient for people who want to become citizens of our great country. I would love for them to feel empowered to teach their own language and culture to other students and teachers in the community so we can all learn multiple languages and bilingualism. These are the kind of things that I would love to see, and this is what I advocate for as well. So here's the point. Historically, in America's schools, we look at language usage and language acquisition models, and that's what we fight over. We fight over, should I do dual language? Should I do an immersion model? Should our school focus how we teach this way, instead of focusing on basic human rights for all children? And that breaks my heart. We look at the students who are learning English often as a problem. And we typically have in our mindset, oh no, I had 2 ELLs last year and that was hard. Now I have 4 this year. Oh my, so much harder. How's it going to be in my life? Right? You're looking at it as a problem, not I have 2 kids that speak Spanish fluently at home. I have 1 kid that speaks Serbian at home, and I have another kid who speaks Russian at home. How can these 3 different languages promote linguistic diversity in my classroom? How can I leverage those languages and make it a much more learning environment for my classroom and really teach students that linguistic diversity is important? That's a positive switch, and that often doesn't, I rarely ever see that in schools because typically we want to fix the problem, not leverage the power that we have already at hand. Okay, I know I'm getting preachy. But this quote, this is a quote that came out of some literature, and I just simplified it. You cannot claim to celebrate cultural diversity and linguistic diversity when you only see the students as a problem. We don't celebrate a problem. We don't go, oh yes, I've got cancer, so glad, right? We celebrate opportunities for learning. We celebrate things that we can do. I'm going to take this class on learning how to cook. Yay! I'm taking this dancing class. Yay! Not, oh no, I have to cook. Oh no, I have to dance, right? So it's just a mindset switch of seeing students who already know another language as an opportunity for learning for all. But that requires a school-wide and district-wide and community-wide belief that language diversity is good. And that's hard. The term that we use is pluralistic language orientation, meaning that it's good to know multiple languages and it benefits them. And it does. The research out there clearly says it benefits to know multiple languages as a human being. So all this to be said, I've already mentioned the research is showing that dual language programs and all that is usually much more beneficial to learning, but often people look at it as un-American. It's that you live in America now, you need to speak English. That mindset creates in us a feeling that it's no use to have everyone learn multiple languages. Why have kids learn Spanish and English when we're in America? Just learn English. And that attitude is what gets us to the point we're at now with the tension and friction. Okay, running short on time, so I'm going to kind of skip over some of this, but many of the practices that you see online that say you should do them, like sheltered English immersion, came out of an English-only movement construct. So what that means is you have people saying, we're in America, speak English. And then with that being said, then school leaders said, well, how do we do that? How do we teach that in a good way? And these programs emerged from it. So there are good things that are in a program like SEI, Sheltered English Emergent, but it came out of a bad idea. And that's where I struggle with something like SEI, where it came from English-only policies. So what works best for all? In a perfect world, we would all be able to focus on learning as many languages as possible, getting to know our neighbors, both real life neighbors and neighbors socially and in social media, and learning different languages besides English. That would be a perfect thing. In a real life situation where we have paraprofessionals, principals, and teachers all striving to learn different languages, they're learning from each other and with each other, they're reading books together in multiple languages, they're embracing linguistic diversity. English only doesn't make sense to me. Here's the typical model. You tell kids they can only speak English. Then in high school, you tell them they have to learn 2 years of a foreign language. They don't really learn it much at all. Maybe they learn a little bit, and then they go off to college and say, oh yeah, I took 2 years of Spanish, but I don't know anything. It doesn't make sense. Okay. I've already talked about this a little too much, probably, and I'm running out of time, but the point is here, if you are learning, if you're focusing your students as you're trying to get them to learn English as quickly as possible, it's going to create friction in their home and their cultural community. It's a disservice to them to try to simply say, your goal is to learn English as fast as possible versus I want you to learn English and continue to improve in your native home language. Okay, so these are some common reactions that I see with teachers when it comes to bilingual emergent students, and they don't help. So let's go through these real quickly. One is pitying the students. This is often what happens because teachers are very compassionate and kind. So they say the things like, I really feel bad for the student. I'm going to have to lower some expectations. You know, they can't speak English, so they can't learn as much. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to lower this bar so that they can get over it. That doesn't help them to learn. It doesn't help them to be successful. It makes it easier for you because you're not struggling to teach them something and trying different creative ways to do it, but it doesn't help them. Maybe it makes it less frustrating for them, but it's not helpful. Shifting responsibilities where you simply say, oh, well, I'm doing my part, but clearly the parents aren't doing their part. If only the parents did this, this, and this, then the kid would do better. And that's not going to help. It's not helpful to just point fingers and say it's the parents' fault. The third is shifting blame altogether. And this I have seen sadly in schools where teachers will say, these kids shouldn't be here. They're clearly illegal aliens. And they've come to our country and they're not supposed to be here. They should go back to where they came from, blah, 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 right? If any of these perspectives are your perspectives, it's going to be extremely difficult to teach these students well. And it's a really gut punch to have to look in the mirror and say, what do I believe about these kids? When I hear people in the grocery speaking a different language, do I get angry or am I okay with that? Do I care if I have a student in my classroom who has parents who do not speak English and I need to find a translator? Or is that going to be a big deal and I'm going to be angry about it? All right, here's what my final point. I have like 2 minutes left. Become an advocate for your kids. That works. So if those 3 things I just showed you doesn't work, here's what works. Vote for the benefit of your students. Okay, I'm making this video in 2020. It's an election year. Vote for the benefit of your students. I'm not going to tell you which party I think that is that votes for the benefit of your students, but look at all issues, look at what you think is going to benefit your students, and vote for the benefit of your students. You take time to run for political offices. That mainly includes school boards. Be a school board member. Be on the PTA committee. Raise your hand and volunteer. Connect with your students and parents for the benefit. Okay, running short on time. I'm not going to make another video. I just will end with this, and you can pause the video. Advocate, advocate, advocate for human rights. Basic human rights for all would be the best thing that you can do for your students. Okay, on that, I'm ending. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. Thanks so much.